A black Mercedes blocked my driveway. My wife leaned against it, laughing with a man I'd never seen. Two guys in leather jackets stood by the trunk. One cracked his knuckles. "Walk away, buddy. She's not yours anymore." I didn't walk away. I stepped closer. 3 weeks later, I discovered that my entire marriage was engineered, that my wife had a son she'd hidden from me for 16 years, and that the FBI had been watching us both without my knowledge. My name is Marcus Cole. I'm 44 years old. For the past 19 years, I've been the head of IT security at Lakeview Memorial Hospital in Chicago. It's not glamorous work, but it matters. I manage every firewall, every encrypted patient record, every access credential in a facility that serves 400,000 patients a year. Clinical trial data, experimental drug research, patient histories, all of it flows through systems I built and maintain. I married Vanessa when I was 26 and she was 23. She was a nurse at Lakeview, which is how we met. She was funny, ambitious, beautiful in a way that made you forget what you were saying mid-sentence. We had our daughter Lily 8 years ago, and I thought life had handed me everything I'd ever wanted. A stable career, a healthy kid, a wife who understood the long hours because she worked them too. I was a fool. The Tuesday it all fell apart. I'd left work early. We just finished a massive server migration for the hospital's new clinical research wing, and my team pulled it off 2 days ahead of schedule. I picked up flowers, yellow tulips, Vanessa's favorite, and drove home picturing the smile she'd give me. Instead, I found the Mercedes. It was a glossy black S-Class, parked sideways across my driveway like whoever owned it didn't care if I existed. The engine was off, but two men stood outside it, both built like bouncers, arms crossed. And there was Vanessa, standing on my front lawn next to a tall man with silver at his temples, wearing a charcoal suit that probably cost more than my mortgage payment. His hand rested on the small of her back, casual, possessive, like he'd done it 1,000 times. "Can I help you?" I said, keeping my voice level. The tall man turned. He had the kind of smile that never reached his eyes. "You must be Marcus. Vanessa's told me a lot about you. Funny, she hasn't mentioned you." Vanessa stepped forward. No guilt on her face. No shame. Just a flat, rehearsed calm. "Marcus, this is Dominic Ashford. We need to talk." Dominic Ashford. I knew the name. Everyone in Chicago's medical world did. CEO of Meridian Pharmaceuticals. His company had been in the news for acquiring smaller biotech firms and fast-tracking drug patents. Rich. Connected. The kind of man who had a table at every restaurant in the city. "Talk about what?" I asked, though my stomach already knew the answer. "I'm leaving, Marcus." Vanessa said it like she was reading a grocery list. "Dominic and I have been together for a while now. I wanted to handle this privately, but you came home early." One of the leather jacket guys stepped toward me. "Mr. Ashford wants this to go smooth. No drama. You go inside, she grabs her things, everybody walks away happy. And if I don't go inside?" The second guy moved to flank me. "Then it doesn't go smooth." I looked at both of them. 6'2", maybe 220 each. Professional muscle. The kind of guys who are used to people backing down because most people do. But most people didn't spend 4 years in the Marine Corps before becoming an IT guy. I'd done 2 tours, came home with a bad knee, and a very specific understanding of how to handle men who think size is everything. "You boys sure about this?" I said quietly. The first one lunged. Wide right hook, telegraphed from a mile away. I sidestepped, caught his wrist, and used his momentum to slam him chest first into the hood of the Mercedes. Before the second one could react, I drove my knee into his thigh-dead leg, and when he buckled, I shoved him into his partner. They went down in a heap of leather and bruised ego. The whole thing took maybe 8 seconds. Dominic's smile had evaporated. He was already backing toward the driver's side door. "There's no need for this, Marcus. Let's be civilized. You brought 2 guys to threaten me at my own house. You lost the right to talk about civilized." Vanessa's composure finally cracked. Fear flickered across her face. "Marcus, stop. Just let us leave." "Where's Lily?" Her eyes shifted. "She's at my mother's. She's fine. You moved our daughter without telling me. She needed stability. Not this." I watched them pile into the Mercedes, the 2 guys limping, Dominic's face tight with barely controlled fury. Vanessa didn't look back as they pulled away. Not once. I stood in my driveway holding yellow tulips that were already starting to wilt. Inside, the house told the story she hadn't bothered to explain. Half the closet, empty. Her jewelry box, gone. Photographs of us removed from the mantel, leaving clean rectangles in the dust. She'd been taking things for weeks, maybe months, a little at a time, so I wouldn't notice. I called my brother, Ray. He's 3 years older, a firefighter on the south side. Steady as a rock. Ray, I need you. What happened? Everything. Just come. He was there in 40 minutes. I told him everything over a beer that I couldn't taste. He listened without interrupting, which is the best thing about Ray. When I finished, he said, "What do you need?" "A lawyer. A good one." He gave me the name of Angela Torres, a family attorney who'd helped his buddy through a nasty divorce 2 years back. I called her first thing in the morning. But the morning brought its own disaster. I walked into Lakeview at 7:30, same as always. By 8:15, I was sitting in the HR director's office being told my position was eliminated. Restructuring, they called it. The IT security department was being outsourced to a third-party firm. My 19 years of service qualified me for a severance package and a firm handshake. This was decided yesterday, the HR director said, not meeting my eyes. "I'm sorry, Marcus." Yesterday. The same day Dominic Ashford showed up at my house. The same Dominic Ashford whose pharmaceutical company had just signed a partnership agreement with Lakeview Memorial's research division. I found that out on my drive home, scrolling through the hospital's press releases at a red light. He'd gotten me fired with a phone call. Maybe not directly, but the timing made it obvious. One day I'm head of IT security at a major hospital. The next day I'm unemployed, my wife is gone, and a billionaire is sleeping in my bed. The legal papers arrived that afternoon. Vanessa had filed for divorce 3 days before the confrontation. 3 days. She'd planned the whole thing, the Mercedes, the muscle, the dramatic exit, knowing the paperwork was already moving. Buried in the filing was a temporary restraining order claiming I'd been emotionally abusive and controlling, and an emergency motion for temporary custody of Lily. In 24 hours, I'd lost my wife, my job, and my daughter. Angela Torres was a sharp woman in her mid-40s, with the energy of someone who ran on coffee and righteous anger. She reviewed Vanessa's filings and shook her head. "This is textbook intimidation," Angela said. "The restraining order is thin. The abuse allegations have no supporting evidence. But the custody motion, that's the real play. They want Lily, and they want her fast. What can we do? Fight. But Marcus, Dominic Ashford, has deep pockets and deeper connections. This isn't going to be cheap or easy." "I don't care about easy. I care about my daughter." Angela nodded. "Then we fight dirty if we have to." I hired a private investigator named Frank Mercer. Ex-homicide detective, late 50s, face like a bulldog, and the tenacity to match. I told him I wanted to know everything about Vanessa and Dominic. Every lie, every dollar, every secret. Frank called me 11 days later. He didn't waste time with small talk. "Sit down, Marcus. This is bad." We met at a diner on West Madison. He slid a thick folder across the table. "Your wife's been cheating for at least 6 years, Frank said. "Dominic's the latest, but far from the first. I've confirmed 4 other men. A surgeon at Northwestern, a real estate broker in Naperville, a personal trainer, and a financial advisor she met through a friend. 6 years. Lily had been 2 years old when it started. I'd been working 60-hour weeks building the hospital's cybersecurity infrastructure while my wife was building a roster of lovers. There's more," Frank continued. "Check page 12. I turned to it. Bank records. Vanessa had been siphoning money from our joint savings into a private account for 5 years. Small withdrawals, $300 here, $500 there. It added up to over $52,000. And this?" Frank showed me a property deed. A condo in Lincoln Park, purchased 2 years ago under an LLC that traced back to Vanessa through 3 shell companies. She had a secret apartment. Had. She's living there now with Ashford. My hands were shaking. I set the folder down carefully because I was afraid I'd tear it apart. "One more thing," Frank said quietly. "And this one's going to hurt the most." He pulled out a photograph. A teenage boy, maybe 15 or 16, with dark hair and Vanessa's jawline. His name is Ethan Weber. He's 16. Lives with his father's parents in Milwaukee. Vanessa gave birth to him when she was 17 and signed away parental rights. The kid's been in and out of group homes. His grandparents took him in 4 years ago. The diner tilted around me. Vanessa had a son she'd never mentioned in 19 years of marriage. A child she'd given away and apparently forgotten. Does Ethan know about her? He's been looking. The grandparents told me he's been asking questions for years. They tried to find Vanessa, but she covered her tracks. She covered her tracks from her own child. Yeah, Frank said. She did. I drove home with the folder on the passenger seat like a bomb waiting to go off. That night, in Lily's empty bedroom surrounded by her stuffed animals and crayon drawings, I made a decision. I wasn't just going to fight for custody. I was going to expose every lie Vanessa had ever told. Angela filed an emergency motion to modify custody. We presented Frank's evidence of financial theft, secret property ownership, and a pattern of deception spanning years. The court date was set for 3 weeks out. Judge Raymond Pierce was assigned to the case. 2 days later, Angela called with bad news. Pierce plays racquetball with Dominic Ashford every Thursday at the East Bank Club. They've been friends for over a decade. You're telling me the judge in my custody case is best friends with my wife's boyfriend. I'm filing for recusal immediately. But Marcus, this is what Ashford does. He doesn't just have money, he has infrastructure. Judges, politicians, hospital administrators. He builds networks of people who owe him favors. So how do we beat a network? We go above it. I have a contact at the FBI's Public Corruption Unit. If Ashford is buying judicial influence, that's federal. Angela introduced me to Special Agent David Chen, a methodical man in his early 50s who listened to everything with the patience of someone who'd heard worse and prosecuted it. What you're describing is concerning, Chen said. But concerning isn't evidence. I need proof that Judge Pierce is compromised. Not just a social connection. Financial transactions, quid pro quo, something I can take to a grand jury. Then let me help you find it, I said. Chen studied me. Mr. Cole, you're an IT security expert. You understand data systems, digital forensics, network analysis. That's literally my job. Then here's what I need. If Ashford has been making payments to Pierce, there will be a trail. It might be buried, but it's there. You help us understand what to look for in his financial systems, and we'll handle the legal side. It wasn't what I'd imagined working with the FBI to dismantle a pharmaceutical CEO's corruption network, but it was something. A way to fight back with the skills I actually had. Then Ethan found me. The email came on a Wednesday morning. Mr. Cole, my name is Ethan Weber. I'm 16 years old. I think your wife is my biological mother. I've been trying to find her for 3 years. I found your name through public records. Can we talk? I called Angela. Is this legal? Can I meet this kid? He's not your legal child. There's no custody order preventing it. But be careful, Marcus. If Vanessa's attorneys find out you're in contact with her biological son, they'll spin it as manipulation. He contacted me. That doesn't matter in court. What matters is optics. I drove to Milwaukee on a Saturday. Ethan's grandparents, Harold and Ruth Weber, lived in a small ranch house near the lake. Harold was a retired machinist with hands like catcher's mitts. Ruth made coffee and set out cookies like she was hosting a church social, but her eyes were wary. Ethan sat across from me at the kitchen table. He was tall for 16, thin, with Vanessa's sharp cheekbones and dark eyes that held too much anger for a kid his age. You're married to my birth mother, he said. Not a question. Technically, yes. We're getting divorced. Because she cheated on you. How did you know that? I've been tracking her online for 2 years. Social media, property records, everything I could find. When you know someone doesn't want to be found, you learn to search harder. He looked down at his hands. She was 17 when she had me. Her parents made her give me up. Or that's what the adoption file says. But I checked. Her parents died when she was 12. She was in foster care. Nobody made her do anything. She just didn't want me. Ethan. It's fine, he said, though it clearly wasn't. I stopped being sad about it a long time ago. Now I just want to know why. Why she threw me away and then pretended I never existed. Over the next hour, I told him what Frank had uncovered. How Vanessa had used visits to family in Wisconsin as cover stories for her affairs, telling me she was visiting a sick aunt who didn't exist when she was meeting one of her lovers. She turned the state where her own abandoned son lived into an alibi. Ethan's face hardened as he listened. Ruth put a hand on his shoulder. She used Milwaukee, Ethan said flatly. She used the place where she dumped me as her excuse to go cheat. I'm sorry. Don't be. You're a victim too. He straightened up. Mr. Cole, I want to help you. If there's a court hearing, I want to testify. I want to look her in the face and ask her why. Ruth looked alarmed. Ethan, honey, think about this. I have thought about it. For 3 years, I've thought about it. She threw me away like garbage and then used my whole existence as a cover story. If she's trying to keep Lily, someone needs to tell the judge what kind of mother she really is. Angela was cautious when I told her. A 16-year-old on the stand is a double-edged sword. The judge might see it as you coaching a teenager for sympathy points. He volunteered. He's a victim in this too. I know. And his testimony could be devastating for Vanessa. But we need to present it carefully. 2 weeks before the rescheduled hearing now assigned to Judge Catherine Liu after Pierce's recusal, I got a call that stopped my heart. Dad? Lily's voice was small, shaky. She'd gotten a hold of Vanessa's phone somehow. Lily, baby, are you okay? I miss you, Dad. Mom's boyfriend keeps trying to make me call him Dominic. He bought me a bunch of stuff, but it's all wrong. He got me a pink bike, and I hate pink. You know I like blue. My chest ached. I know, sweetheart. Dad, I heard Mom on the phone. She was yelling at someone about you. She said they needed to make sure you couldn't get me back. She said something about your work computers. My work computers? She said there were files or something. She sounded scared. After I hung up, I called Agent Chin immediately. Vanessa mentioned my work computers. Files. What if Ashford didn't just get me fired to punish me? What if he needed me out of the way to access the hospital's systems? Chin was quiet for a moment. Mr. Cole, we've been investigating Meridian Pharmaceuticals for 8 months. They're suspected of stealing clinical trial data from competing hospitals to fast-track their own FDA approvals. If your wife was feeding Ashford your access credentials, your login patterns, your security architecture, then she wasn't just cheating on me. She was helping him rob the hospital and every patient whose data was compromised. The pieces snapped together with sickening clarity. Vanessa hadn't just happened to work at Lakeview Memorial. She'd been positioned there. Maybe not from the very beginning I'd met her before Ashford was even in the picture, but at some point, the affair had become a business arrangement. She provided inside knowledge about the hospital's security systems. Ashford used it to steal clinical trial data worth millions. Can we prove it? I asked. With your help? Yes. You designed those security systems. You know where the vulnerabilities are, which means you know where someone would have exploited them. If you can show us the breach points, we can trace the intrusions back to Meridian. I spent the next week working with the FBI's cyber forensics team, and I found them subtle breaches, cleverly disguised, going back 4 years. Someone had been accessing the clinical research database using credentials that mimicked routine maintenance logins. The kind of thing only someone who understood the system's architecture intimately could have designed. Someone who'd watched me work, who'd asked innocent questions about my day, who'd sat next to me on the couch while I troubleshot problems on my laptop, memorizing what I typed. Vanessa. I also found something else. In Ashford's financial records, which Agent Chin had obtained through a warrant, there were quarterly payments to a company called Lakeshore Consulting Group. That company didn't actually exist. The payments were routed through 2 intermediaries and landed in an account belonging to Judge Raymond Pierce's wife. $240,000 over 3 years. Chin pulled me and Angela into a meeting. We've got enough for indictments. Pierce. Ashford. Your wife. Industrial espionage, corruption, fraud. This is going to be big. What about my daughter? I asked. That was all I cared about. The custody hearing proceeds. Judge Liu is clean. And when this evidence comes in, Vanessa's custody claim won't survive it. 3 days before the hearing, Dominic Ashford called me. I answered against everyone's advice, with Chin listening on a separate line. Marcus. His voice was smooth, controlled. I think we should meet. Man to man. Settle this before it gets uglier. We met at a steakhouse in the West Loop. Ashford was already seated, a glass of bourbon in front of him, looking every inch the powerful CEO who was used to buying his way out of problems. I sat down. I was wearing a wire. The FBI had insisted, and this time, unlike the idiot in so many stories I'd read, I'd actually agreed to wear one. Let's skip the pleasantries, I said. Ashford smiled. Direct. I respect that. He reached into his coat and produced an envelope. Inside was a cashier's check for $3 million. Here's what I'm proposing, he said. You sign over primary custody to Vanessa. You get standard visitation every other weekend. And you take this money and start a new chapter. New city, new career, new life. I stared at the check. $3 million. More money than I'd earn in a decade. You want to buy my daughter. I want to resolve this efficiently. Lawyers are expensive. Courts are unpredictable. This guarantees you walk away comfortable. And if I say no? His smile hardened. Then things get complicated. Your immigration sponsorship at the hospital that was tied to your employment. Without the job, your work history has gaps. We start asking questions about your credentials. Maybe some of those cybersecurity certifications aren't as current as they should be. Maybe there are irregularities in your background check from 19 years ago. Things that might interest the right people. I picked up the check. Ashford's eyes gleamed. Then I tore it in half, and in half again. I dropped the pieces on his untouched steak. Here's my counter, I said, standing. I'm going to get my daughter back. Then I'm going to watch you lose everything. And there's not a check big enough to change that. His face went cold. You're making the worst mistake of your life, Cole. No. The worst mistake of my life was trusting Vanessa. This is the best decision I've ever made. I walked out. In the van parked across the street, Agent Chin was smiling. We got everything. The bribery references, the threats about your employment, the attempted witness tampering. Thank you for wearing the wire, Mr. Cole. Seemed like the smart move. The night before the hearing, Ethan called. Mr. Cole, I've been practicing what I want to say. My grandmother helped me write it down. I'm ready. Ethan, you really don't have to do this. Yeah, I do. She threw me away and used me as a lie for 16 years. Lily deserves better than that. So did I. The morning of the hearing, Judge Catherine Liu's courtroom felt like a pressure cooker. Vanessa sat at the plaintiff's table with a single attorney. Most of her legal team had withdrawn when rumors of the federal investigation started circulating. She looked smaller without the armor of Ashford's money. Tired. Scared, even. Ashford sat in the gallery, still projecting confidence, but I noticed his hands clenching and unclenching on his knees. He didn't know about the wire yet. He didn't know what was coming. Vanessa's attorney, a veteran named Sandra Klein, started strong. She painted me as volatile, showing photos of Ashford's 2 security men after our confrontation, arguing that I'd responded with excessive force to a simple conversation. Mr. Cole has a documented history of aggression, Klein argued. He physically assaulted 2 men who posed no threat. Angela stood. Those 2 men told my client, and I quote from his recorded statement to police, "Walk away, or it doesn't go smooth." That is a direct threat of physical harm on Mr. Cole's own property. He defended himself. The police declined to press charges. Judge Liu looked unimpressed with Klein's argument. Continue, but I'll note that self-defense on one's own property is not evidence of unfitness as a parent. Then Vanessa took the stand. She was good composed, emotional at the right moments. Painting a picture of a husband who was always at work, emotionally distant, more interested in his computers than his family, lies wrapped in just enough truth to be dangerous. Angela's cross-examination was surgical. She walked Vanessa through the financial records. The siphoned money. The secret condo. The 4 confirmed affairs. Mrs. Cole, did you maintain a sexual relationship with Dr. James Hartwell while married to my client? Vanessa's eyes darted to Klein, who nodded slightly. I made mistakes. 4 mistakes? Over 6 years? With 4 different men? It's not that simple. Did you purchase a condominium in Lincoln Park using shell companies to hide the purchase from your husband? I needed my own space. Did you divert $52,000 from your joint savings account into a private account without your husband's knowledge? I was planning for my future. Were you planning for your future when you abandoned your firstborn son 16 years ago and then used his city of residence as an alibi to cover your extramarital affairs? The courtroom went dead silent. Vanessa's face drained of color. I don't know what you're talking about, she whispered. Your Honor, Angela said, we'd like to call Ethan Weber to the stand. Ethan walked in from the hallway. He wore a button-down shirt that was slightly too big and his hands were trembling, but his jaw was set. When he passed Vanessa's table, he looked directly at her. She flinched. State your name for the record, Judge Liu said gently. Ethan Michael Weber. I'm 16 years old, and the woman sitting over there is my biological mother. He told his story simply. Born in Chicago, given up immediately, raised by his father's parents after bouncing through foster homes. Years of wondering why his mother didn't want him. And then the discovery that she hadn't just abandoned him, she'd weaponized his existence. Every time she wanted to disappear for a weekend, she'd tell her husband she was visiting family in Wisconsin, Ethan said, his voice steady. She used the state where she dumped me as her cover story. I wasn't even a person to her. I was an alibi. Klein tried to object, but Judge Liu waved her off. There's one more thing, Ethan said. He looked directly at Vanessa. I spent 3 years looking for you. 3 years wondering what was wrong with me that my own mother didn't want me. And now I know nothing was wrong with me. Everything is wrong with you. Vanessa broke down completely, sobbing into her hands. Then the courtroom door opened, and Lily walked in. She wasn't supposed to be there. Vanessa had left her with a babysitter. But Lily had called Ray my brother, who she adored, and he'd brought her. She was wearing her blue jacket, the one I'd bought her, and she marched straight up to the judge's bench with the fearlessness that only 8-year-olds possess. Your Honor, Ray said from the doorway, Lily Cole asked to be here. She has something she wants to say. Judge Liu looked torn. This is unusual. I want to live with my dad, Lily said loudly, her voice ringing through the courtroom. Mom's boyfriend is mean and Mom is always on the phone yelling at people, and I just want to go home. Dad makes pancakes on Saturday and reads to me at night, and he never lies to me. Then she turned to Vanessa. You lied, Mom. You told me Dad didn't want to see me. But he's been calling every day and you wouldn't let me answer. I checked your phone. I saw all the missed calls. The courtroom erupted. Judge Liu's gavel came down hard. Order. But the damage was done. Vanessa's carefully constructed narrative had been demolished by her own children, one she'd abandoned and one she'd tried to keep. I noticed Angela glancing toward the back of the courtroom, where 2 men in dark suits were taking notes. FBI. Chen's people. The federal case was watching the family case unfold. Judge Liu called a recess. In the hallway, Angela gripped my arm. This is going well, but we're not done. Liu hasn't ruled yet. When we reconvened, Vanessa's attorney made one last attempt. Your Honor, Mr. Cole is not without fault. We have evidence that 6 years ago, he engaged in an inappropriate relationship with a colleague at a work conference in Denver. The courtroom went quiet. I felt my stomach drop. Angela looked at me sharply. I nodded. Your Honor, Klein continued, Mr. Cole had a one-night encounter at a cybersecurity conference. He never disclosed this to his wife. Judge Liu looked at me. Mr. Cole? I stood. It's true, Your Honor. 6 years ago, I made a terrible mistake at a conference. One night. I've regretted it every day since, and I've never repeated it. And you never told your wife? No, ma'am. I was ashamed. I should have told her. I was wrong. Liu nodded slowly. Mr. Cole, one mistake does not establish a pattern. Mrs. Cole's attorney is presenting a single indiscretion alongside evidence of 6 years of systematic deception, financial fraud, child abandonment, and based on the testimony I've heard today, a troubling pattern of dishonesty with her own children. The comparison does not favor your client, Miss Klein. Klein sat down. Then Angela played our final card. Your Honor, we'd like to submit additional evidence. This morning, the FBI executed search warrants related to a federal investigation into industrial espionage at Lakeview Memorial Hospital. Mrs. Cole is a subject of that investigation. She laid out the evidence. The data breaches. The security exploits using knowledge only someone intimate with the system's architect could possess. The payments to Judge Pierce. The connection between Vanessa's access and Meridian Pharmaceuticals' suspiciously timed FDA submissions. Mrs. Cole didn't just betray her husband, Angela said. She helped steal medical research data that affects hundreds of thousands of patients. She compromised the privacy of every person treated at Lakeview Memorial. Vanessa stood up suddenly. I didn't have a choice, she shouted. Dominic found out about Ethan. He found out about the money I'd taken. He blackmailed me. If I didn't help him, he was going to expose everything. The courtroom went still. Mrs. Cole, Judge Liu said carefully, are you making a statement without your attorney present? I don't care anymore, Vanessa said, tears streaming. She turned to me. Marcus, I know you won't believe me, but some of it was real. When Lily was born holding her for the first time, I wanted to be different. I wanted to stop lying, but I was in too deep. You could have told me the truth at any point in 19 years, I said. You chose not to. Every single day, you chose the lie. She crumpled back into her chair. Judge Liu didn't need long to deliberate. This court grants full physical and legal custody of Lily Cole to Marcus Cole, she said. Mrs. Cole will be permitted supervised visitation pending the resolution of federal proceedings against her and completion of a psychological evaluation. This court also recommends that Mr. Cole facilitate a relationship between Lily and her half-brother Ethan Weber, as the court believes sibling connections serve the best interests of both children. Lily ran to me. I picked her up and held her so tight I thought I might break us both. She buried her face in my neck and said, "Can we go home now, Dad?" "Yeah, baby. We're going home." In the gallery, Dominic Ashford was already being escorted out by 2 federal agents. His face was gray. The empire was falling. Over the following months, the pieces settled into place. Ashford was indicted on 14 counts of industrial espionage, wire fraud, corruption, and witness intimidation. The wire I'd worn at the steakhouse was the crown jewel of the prosecution's case. He was sentenced to 22 years in federal prison. His pharmaceutical empire was dismantled. The stolen clinical trial data was identified and quarantined, protecting the patients whose records had been compromised. Judge Pierce was arrested at his home on a Tuesday morning. He pleaded guilty to accepting bribes and was disbarred. 3 years in minimum security. Not enough, but it was something. Vanessa cooperated with the FBI in exchange for a reduced sentence. She pleaded guilty to conspiracy and fraud and was sentenced to 8 years. She'd be eligible for parole in 5. At her sentencing, she looked at me across the courtroom and mouthed, "I'm sorry, I didn't respond." Some words come too late to mean anything. Ethan started spending weekends with us. The first time he met Lily, she looked up at this tall, nervous teenager and said, "Are you my brother?" He knelt down and said, "Yeah, I guess I am." She hugged him immediately, the way kids do before the world teaches them to hesitate. I took a new position as director of cybersecurity at a medical research nonprofit. Less money than Lakeview, but clean. No corruption. No one trying to steal data or buy judges. Ray helped me repaint Lily's room. She chose blue, obviously. We added a second bed for when Ethan stayed over. It was a small room with 2 beds, a bookshelf, and a window that caught the morning sun. It was enough. One Saturday morning, I was making pancakes Lily's with chocolate chips, Ethan's plain with extra syrup when Lily looked up from her coloring book and said, "Dad, are we going to be okay?" I looked at her, then at Ethan, who was pretending not to listen while scrolling his phone. "We're going to be better than okay," I said. Ethan glanced up. "We're a family now, right?" "A real one," I said. "Built on the truth this time." That night, after both kids were asleep, I stood on the back porch and called Angela. "Thank you," I said, "for everything. You did the hard part, Marcus. You didn't back down." I thought about everything we'd been through. The betrayal. The fear of losing Lily. The nights I sat alone in her empty room wondering if I'd ever get her back. The courage of a 16-year-old boy who stood up in court and faced the mother who'd thrown him away. The fearlessness of an 8-year-old girl who told the truth when the adults around her wouldn't. Lily was safe. Ethan had found his place. The people who tried to destroy us were behind bars. And in a small house on the north side of Chicago, a family that never should have existed was learning how to be real. That was worth every battle. Every scar. Every sleepless night. It was worth everything.